is the David story, the latest update.
Now it's been over a month since I last made a video about the David, spelled d4vd story, and last time we spoke we left things off with the investigation still ongoing. Police were still deep into their investigation of what happened to 14-year-old Celeste Rivas, the young girl tragically found in the front trunk of a Tesla registered to the singer. At that time there were no major breakthroughs. According to one source, the case was being treated as a homicide, and detectives had already searched the home where David was staying, and they'd seized multiple electronics and used luminol to check for traces of blood. Now since then, a few new things have happened that I never actually covered, and if you've been watching other platforms talk about this story, none of this will be brand new to you, but I haven't spoken about it since my last video on this was over a month ago. So in this video, we're gonna pick up right where we left off and go through those things. Before we start, by the way, I just want to send some love to everybody out there in Jamaica dealing with the hurricane right now. I got a lot of people out there who watch me, so y'all stay safe, y'all stay strong, and I'm praying for you guys, okay? Bless up. With that being said, let's get into it. Now, where we left things the last time we spoke about this was this. Investigators were still piecing together Celeste's final days, going through her last known movements. We also talked about surveillance footage showing what's believed to be her last appearance before she went missing, and how neighbors said that the Tesla had been parked in the same spot for weeks before it was finally towed. At that point, Celeste's body had just been released back to her family, but investigators hadn't revealed yet how she died or whether David would face any charges connected to the case. That's where things stood when I last covered this story. So let's dive into it, okay? Ever since the story broke, one of the biggest questions people have had is whether or not David himself is actually considered a suspect. Because when a body's found and a car registered to your name, you know, that's the first thing the public jumps to. It only makes sense, right? And this right here has been one of the key things investigators have been trying to figure out, right? So about a week after I dropped my last video on this story over a month ago, the LAPD made a statement to Complex officially clearing things up. And according to them, David isn't a suspect in Celeste's death, at least right now, okay? They explained that there's simply not enough evidence yet right now to name anyone a suspect, and that the cause of death still hasn't even truly been determined. In their exact words, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner has not yet determined the cause or manner of Miss Rivas Hernandez's death. As such, it remains unclear whether there is any criminal culpability beyond the concealment of her body. At this point, I'm sure they probably know more because, you know, my video was over a month ago and this happened right after, okay? And while investigators continued digging into how her remains ended up there, more details about the young girl's home life started popping up. It was reported that police were actually called to her family's home in Lake Elsinore, California, more than 10 times between February 2024 and April.
More evidence has surfaced of Celeste Rivas' troubled home life. Riverside County Sheriff's deputies were called to her house 11 times in just 1 year, TMZ has learned. Deputies repeatedly responded to her house in Lake Elsinore, California between February 2024 and April of 2025. According to police records obtained by TMZ, and get this, cops say deputies visited Celeste's home 3 times in a single day.
And here's the thing, right? Most of those calls were actually marked as minor investigations, but one was labeled as suspicious circumstances. Maybe the police marked it as that way because of how many times they'd already been called to that specific address. Like at some point it probably started to raise some red flags, like why are we being called to the same location over and over again, right? And this is where things get interesting, because you guys remember that surveillance footage I showed you in my last video where you could actually see Celeste and was believed to be her last moments before she disappeared? Well, that footage came from a liquor store just down the street from her home, and the store owner, a man named Eli Nadaf, stated that Celeste's sister came in that same day asking to check the cameras because they thought she might have run away, right? When her sister saw the footage, she confirmed it was her, and in the clip you could see her jogging around the corner, switching between walking and running before disappearing from the frame eventually, right? Now Nadaf later gave, the store owner, right, his name was Eli Nadaf, he later gave the footage to the family hoping it would help them find her. Now on the particular day of that footage, which was March 19th, 2024, something else came out after my last video. It turns out on that same day that Celeste was seen in that liquor store footage, police received 3 separate calls from that same address, her family's home in Lake Elsinore. And this next part gives it a little more context. An ex-boyfriend of hers, his name is Damien, he's a young boy, he told TMZ that back when she was in 7th grade and he was in 8th grade, him and Celeste actually dated for a while. And he said that she once mentioned she was planning to run away, but at the time, nobody really took her seriously. The young boy stated that they had PE class, physical education for my international viewers, and During that class, Celeste told him and his friend that she was planning to run away, and she allegedly said it was because of her parents. Damon also mentioned that 14-year-old Celeste didn't really get along with her parents. He said she told him they were mean to her. Now, I don't know what that specifically looked like behind closed doors. Obviously, I'm not going to speculate, but that's what he shared. Okay, Damien shared this from his own experience in his own words.
Did she talk at all about her relationship with her parents?
Kind of. She just said they were mean or whatever. She didn't like them. Yeah, I didn't think it was gonna happen like at all, cause like she was always like so happy and stuff. We were at PE and she told me and my friend that she was running away, and she said it was because of her parents. And the next day she wasn't at school, and like that's the last time I saw her.
Oh my gosh.
And when it comes to her saying that she was gonna run away, Damon explained that she was saying all this in a joking way and that she seemed happy at the time, so they didn't really think it was serious. But the next day, Celeste wasn't at school anymore, and according to Damien, that was actually the last time he ever saw her. I don't know if the young boy, Damien, has been interviewed by law enforcement, but if he has, that could definitely offer investigators a few more clues. Now, personally, I don't think the young boy is lying. I mean, why would he? He generally comes across as a good kid, generally, and I'm not doubting that he had good intentions by speaking out, especially considering that he was her boyfriend, right? And I'm sure the whole thing for him has been a shock, right? And honestly, I commend him for speaking up and being willing to talk about it publicly. So if you're watching this, Damien, salute to you, young man, for speaking on it and offering the public a little more insight into who Celeste was and what she might have been going through. And you know, I do think it's notable that she was already talking about running away back then, because here's the thing. After everything we've learned about Celeste so far, it's clear that she had a complicated situation at home, which a lot of kids do, right? I don't know exactly what that looked like, and out of respect, I will not speculate on that. But let's just say this. A child doesn't go searching for safety or validation outside their home unless the place that's supposed to protect them starts feeling less safe than the outside world. And that's not a job at the family or me trying to assign blame. All I'm saying is, yes, children make decisions that don't always make sense, but they shouldn't be held accountable the same way adults are. That's not how it works, because I always like to say that children aren't proactive in how they move through life. They are reactive. Their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handles logic and judgment, isn't even fully developed yet. And here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize, even though the brain stops growing in size during the early teen years, it keeps fine-tuning how it works all the way into your mid to late 20s. That part right behind your forehead, my big-ass forehead, the prefrontal cortex is actually one of the last areas to mature. It's responsible for things like planning, prioritizing, and making smart decisions. So when we talk about Celeste, we're literally talking about someone whose brain wasn't even close to being finished developing. So you can't hold a child to the same standard of accountability as you can an adult. Now, shifting gears back to the actual case. Investigators have described this whole thing as complicated. And one of the biggest pieces still missing right now is the official cause of death, right? That's what we spoke on earlier. The LAPD captain leading the investigation said that the medical examiner may actually hold the keys to this entire case. That's why even months later, the case officially hasn't been classified as a homicide. Aside from one official source who apparently had inside info, that's beside the point. Detectives are still working closely with the medical examiner right now. They're also reviewing footage from the vehicle's cameras to see if anything captured the person or people who might have placed Celeste inside the front trunk of that Tesla. And lastly, police also confirmed they're still looking into the reported relationship between Celeste and David. But at this stage, they're not pursuing any suspect or any persons of interest. That's another thing a lot of people have been wondering about. And as you can see, it's still in the gray area. We still don't really know what it is that they're doing. But personally, I imagine that the investigators are going to need more than just digital evidence to move forward with something like that, okay? Because if that part of the story ever comes into question, we're talking about statutory crime, okay? Statutory crime, you know what I mean? And at this stage, what's more important to them than speculation is figuring out the cause of death, okay? That's the piece everything else depends on. Now, the next part is something I've been trying to avoid talking about in all my videos about this. I haven't mentioned it once, mainly because of how sensitive and messy online conversations can get, but it's also a part of the conversation that has recently came out, okay? So I have to talk about this. It's only right we talk about it. According to new information from the official death certificate, Celeste's cause of death is still listed as deferred, meaning the medical examiner hasn't been able to determine exactly how she died. They're still waiting on toxicology results and lab tests before they can see for sure whether this was foul play, an overdose, or something else entirely. But here's where things take a turn, and this is the part that I was talking about that came out like a few days after I dropped my video over a month ago, right? For weeks, a lot of people were pushing rumors and theories that Celeste might have been pregnant. And again, this is why I didn't speak on it earlier, because people are just kind of running with wild theories that have zero confirmed facts to them. But the official documents, official documents make it clear that she was actually not pregnant and had not been pregnant in the last year. Now that line alone answers a big part of what people have been speculating about. It also shows you how quickly misinformation can spread when people are just...
situations like that where women do become pregnant and a potential homicide might occur just based on the situation of someone being pregnant. They might not want the child, and they don't have nothing to do with the child because it's been given life. So some people might lean towards trying to cover it up and basically trying to disregard, make this situation not exist. Which I can see why people speculated on. They might spread rumors of, maybe she was pregnant and this is how she might have got murdered because such and such happened. But I could see why they would assume that, or I could see why people could be going around saying that she might have could have been pregnant. I could see why.
Talking, like literally, they don't even know what the fuck they're talking about, right? They're just talking. Now, the next thing I never covered in my last video from over a month ago is something that completely changes the timeline of this whole story, right? There's some footage that surfaced, and it rewrites what we thought we knew about Celeste's last known movements. This video was recorded by a neighbor's Nest camera outside her parents' home in Lake Elsinore, California. Now, the scoop was that Celeste went missing back in April of 2024. This was the story, right? She went missing back in April of 2024, and that her family hadn't seen her since. But this new clip captured by a camera on September 8th, 2024, exactly 1 year to the day before she was found, crazy, right, proves otherwise.
Let me talk real quick, okay? You gonna let me talk? I ain't gonna let you talk. No, you ain't gonna let me talk. Why you not gonna let me talk? You tripping. I ain't tripping. Nah, you tripping. Salvador, you tripping.
Oh my god.
Nah, cause you tripping. Move the out of here.
I don't, it's hard to believe it.
You better get over there. Get your over there, girl.
So that's about 5 months after she allegedly ran away. I don't really know how to feel about this footage. It just seems odd. Like the fact that this happened exactly 1 year to the day before she was found. What are the odds of that? Crazy. Ain't that crazy, right? Like crazy. It's really hard not to wonder how something like that lines up. Like how the hell was she found exactly a year after that footage came out? I just think it's very strange, right? As for the footage itself, you can clearly tell that she was upset. She was kind of like the girl who was screaming in the background. And it's being reported that Celeste was allegedly arguing with a few people who had apparently pulled a prank on her. And the people she's arguing with, that's actually a whole nother family who lives very close to her family's home, right? And after that confrontation, by the way, those neighbors reportedly went to Celeste's home to apologize. And according to what's being said, her dad answered the door, but he seemed pretty unbothered, pretty unfazed by the whole thing. So I don't really know what's up with that. Now, the issue with this footage is that it kind of contradicts what we've heard from the family, which has led to a lot of scrutiny online. And I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm just presenting the information as it's come out. Now, the next thing we have, and this is something I never covered in my last video, is a case of swatting. There was apparently a swatting incident at one of David's family homes in Texas. For anyone who doesn't know what swatting is, it's when someone makes a fake emergency call to the police claiming there's a violent situation happening at a certain address. A lot of famous people have been victims of this before. It's basically a way to kind of like taunt or harass somebody using law enforcement as...
I don't blame the people who are part of the SWAT team. I don't blame them for making an investigation. You know, having guns, having body armor, having suits on, having all this protective gear, having weapons. They're just doing their job, and that's basically the description of someone making a call in emergency violence situation that particularly could or may not be going on at the time, but just for that protection, that safety precaution, they're just doing their job, and I don't blame them for that.
The weapon. And obviously this is completely dangerous, it's illegal, and it's meant to trigger a heavy police response, usually SWAT teams, to someone's house as a prank or intimidation tactics. Now, in this particular case, deputies in Waller County, Texas, sped through the night after a 911 call came in claiming there had been a deadly shooting at a particular address. And then eventually we see this video that shows this swatting incident at David's family home in Texas. But eventually when they got there with weapons drawn and all that, they quickly realized it was fake. And the people inside, who turned out to be David's parents, were completely fine.
Sheriff's deputies speed through the night in the outskirts of Houston, responding to a 911 call about a deadly shooting.
Yeah, Waller County Sheriff's Office.
I heard like some like gunshots, and I think someone's dead.
When they arrive at the home in question, guns are drawn. But after talking with the people who answered the front door, they quickly learned the call was fake. A case of swatting, someone reportedly using a device that alters voices, calling in a false report. In this case, the people living in the house were the parents of David.
The caller had used a device to disguise their voice, which is a pretty common trick in these swatting cases for anonymity purposes. Now, I don't think this was necessary or right at all, no matter what you think about David or this whole situation. At the end of the day, this is his family, right? And I don't personally think they deserve to be dragged into something like that. Now, luckily, they ended up being safe. Nothing happened, right? And here's the thing with swatting. It doesn't always end with things end up being fine, because there's been incidents where people have actually lost their lives because of it.
In 2017, Barris thought he was swatting the home of a video game rival after a fight over a bet for $1.50.
What?
But police swarmed Andrew Finch's home, an innocent man with no connection to the game. He was shot and killed by police who thought he was reaching for a gun.
So it's a very dangerous thing to play with, and it's not something to take lightly. Now, moving on to something a little different. The landlord of the Hollywood Hills home where David was staying before all this went down has officially started cleaning house, literally. After police executed the search warrant at the property weeks ago, the owner, a guy named Mladen Trifunovic, sounds like he's Serbian or Bosnian with that name. Mnogo Ljubavi, I think that's how you say it. If you're Serbian or Bosnian, you know exactly what that means, right? Now, interestingly, in an interview he did after the search, he told Rolling Stone that he had no idea David had even been living there until his real estate manager called him about the situation that had occurred at his property that same morning. And this is what the landlord said. He said, "This all came as a complete shock to me. I only found out about the police activity this morning. I never knew David personally, and I wasn't aware that he'd ever been living in the house." So yeah, you can tell that this whole situation blindsided him. Now after that, he brought in a cleanup crew to sweep the place top to bottom so he could get it ready for the next tenants. You know how they say the feds did a sweep? Well, Mladen did a sweep, okay? Photos show workers hauling out bags, clothes, boxes, random items, basically anything that had been left behind. And they weren't wasting any time, tossing stuff straight into the trash, clearing out every trace of what used to be there. It's being reported that someone came by to pick up the remainder of David's belongings before the cleanup actually started, but whatever was left behind got thrown out to the garbage.
To the garbage.
Landlord's just trying to move on, especially with that $20,000 a month rent on the line. $20K for rent is absolutely crazy, by the way. Like a month, $20,000 a month for rent. That's insane. Crazy. Insane. Crazy, bro. So while the investigation is still unfolding, it looks like the Hollywood Hills chapter of this story is officially closed, at least from the landlord's side. Now, something else about the landlord, by the way, right? About 6 weeks after the discovery of Celeste's body, he actually hired a private investigator to look into what actually happened inside the home. Apparently, he was frustrated that he hadn't received any updates from the LAPD, which should tell you how hush-hush they're keeping this entire case. And he said he wants to respect both the investigation and Celeste's memory, but at the same time, he's looking out for his own interest, trying to understand what really went down in his property. And honestly, I can't blame him for that. If your name or your house suddenly got, or a property that you own got tied to something this heavy, you probably want answers too. So from his perspective, I'm sure he's thinking, what if they missed something, like a piece of evidence or something small that could come back later and cause more problems? Because law enforcement can make mistakes, obviously, and the quicker this gets cleared up, the quicker they're out of his hair. And then we have another part of this story that hit hard, and honestly, kind of hit me hard. About a week after I released my last video, Celeste Rivas was actually finally laid to rest. Family and friends gathered at a cemetery in Rowland Heights, California, where they carried her casket to its final resting place. For them, this was the first real chance to say goodbye. After months of pain, questions, and confusion, they could finally lay her to rest. It's one of those moments that reminds you of just how real the story is. No matter what any of us have to say about the family, no parent deserves to bury their child before their child ever gets the chance to bury them. Behind the headline of the story, there's a family that'll never be the same again. And no matter what happens in this case right here, like this part right here, this was their moment of peace. And anyone who's ever buried someone that they love knows exactly how heavy a moment like this can be. With that somber moment out of the way, David actually made some moves shortly after all this.
We've learned he made changes to the ownership of one of his Texas homes last month. Records show he transferred his Cypress home into his mother's name on September 23rd. That's the same time the teen's body, who was found in his car, was released to her family.
According to new reports, David transferred ownership of one of his homes in Texas to his mother around the same time Celeste's body was released to her family. The property, located in Cypress, Texas, just outside of Houston, was officially transferred into her name on September 23rd. Now, the timing of that transfer definitely raised some eyebrows, especially since it happened right as Celeste's body was being returned to her family, and the case was dominating national headlines. And I know a lot of people might be wondering, why would he do something like that? Well, there are a few possibilities. The number one being taking preemptive action in case he gets sued. Because here's the thing, no matter how the situation ends, something is likely to happen legally. If I had to take an educated guess, and obviously I'm not a lawyer, if your lawyer looks like me, you're cooked. He could be facing a civil lawsuit sometime down the line, right? Since the Tesla was registered in his name, he could potentially be sued for negligence or something related to how that vehicle was handled, since it was his vehicle, right? And it was in his name. And civil cases are very different from criminal ones. This wouldn't be about proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It'd be about financial responsibility. So if that house or any other major assets he owns are still under his name, that's the kind of stuff lawyers might come for first. So transferring it to a family member could just be his way of protecting, it probably actually is his way of protecting what he can before anything like that happens. So logically, it makes sense that he'd do something like this. He's just trying to really protect the bag he's already built. It's really that simple, right? Doesn't mean he's guilty of anything. It just means he's being proactive, taking precautions in case things ever move in that direction. Now, the next thing that we have is that law enforcement has actually officially seized every piece of surveillance footage from the rental that David was staying at. And apparently when they executed that search warrant last month, they took all the recordings from multiple security cameras on the property. And those cameras will, of course, show who was coming in and out of the property and who was around the house during that period, right? So let's just say that if Celeste was ever at that property before her death, the footage could be the key to proving that, right? So this is pretty big. Now, the landlord stated that he hasn't seen any of the footage himself and that he apparently didn't have access to the cameras in the first place. According to him, he wanted to give his tenants privacy, so he couldn't even check the footage if he wanted to. That's according to him, right? And the landlord apparently asked the LAPD for a copy of the warrant and a list of what was seized, but hasn't gotten a response as of right now. So as of right now, police are the only ones who know what's actually on those tapes. If that footage shows anything linking Celeste to the house, that could completely reshape how this whole story is viewed.
Look at this motherfucker.
Now let's talk about how David has been moving legally, because he's definitely been making some major moves behind the scenes. Now, David has actually hired Blair Burke, one of Hollywood's top criminal defense attorneys, to represent him in all of this. Now, for anyone who doesn't know who Blair Burke is, she's that lawyer, okay? She's that lawyer.
She that lawyer.
Stacked. We're talking Kanye West, Mel Gibson, Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears, and even Harvey Weinstein. Interesting. So yeah, this isn't some random lawyer you find on Google, right? This is who Hollywood calls when things get serious. And honestly, from a legal standpoint, this makes complete sense. I mean, this is the kind of attorney you hire when you're expecting a long, complicated legal battle, which David most likely will have in front of him, or at the very least when you're preparing for one. Now, to be clear, police still haven't named David as a suspect, right? But hiring someone like her is basically his way of saying, I'm not playing around with this. I'm not taking no motherfucking chances, right? So he's protecting himself, and more importantly, he's protecting his future. So obviously, let's not forget, just because he did this doesn't mean that he's guilty. The dude clearly has the money to afford a very good criminal attorney. And honestly, a move like this is probably coming out of his label's budget, right? So it's not coming out of his own pocket. And that's how the industry works. The label will protect its investment, because David is an investment. He's an asset to his record label, no matter what you may think. At the end of the day, this isn't a proof of guilt, it's preparation. Because innocent until proven guilty, as far as we know. And if you got the resources to hire the best, you'd be crazy not to. So no, this doesn't mean that he's done anything wrong. It just means that he's lawyering up and he's getting ready for whatever is about to come next. If you made it this far, drop a like on this video and subscribe. Those are the updates I have for you guys. This is one of those stories I'm only going to touch on when there's something new to talk about, not just speculation or recycled info, because I'm not here to waste your time, because I actually respect you, okay? So until there's another real update, I'll leave you guys with this. Curious to hear what you guys have to say. Y'all let me know in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys on the next video, man. Arrivederci.
What have you? That's an update that I wanted to see. Just showing, giving an update on what potentially could have been the case about what happened. I mean, you're not innocent until you're proven guilty. And then I did want to say something. Even though I've seen videos that speculated on the internet of them two being together, so we end up getting an update that she was planning to run away and she hasn't been in that exact same day. She had probably been in the worst case where she's either been kidnapped or been killed or whatever. And then within that same day she ran away, something happened. Next day, she ends up going missing. That's crazy though, because something happened within that same day that she told her friends and her boyfriend at the time that she was planning to run away, and then the next day she ends up going missing. And she didn't end up coming to school the next day, and that's the last time they saw her. So something happened within that exact same day she ran away. I would say they probably should look into that more to try to lead up to where, yeah, I mean, that's probably what they're doing now, but just to lead up to like what happened to her in the exact same day she ran away and showed up at that drugstore, or was it a drugstore? Whatever it was some kind of store. Just look into what happened that exact same day, or what led her to going missing that very next day.